This is a very illustrious panel. We're going to bring everybody up in the order, I think. Darla, Mandy, James, and Tabassum. And we're going to be looking a little bit ahead, as well as kind of what the state of the industry is right now. I never sit down until the last lady sits down, so there we go. Darla, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your organization, and then answer the question, where do you see the restaurant of 2030?
Okay, I'm Darla Morse. I'm with CKE. I've been there about 10 months. I've had a long background. I was at Disney, so lots of food and beverage there, as well as Inspire. And so coming here, I would say, the restaurant of the future has to be aligned to our guest behavior. And we design a lot of things, but I'm not sure we've always thought about how the guest wants to see it. So we have to ensure that, speed of service, accuracy, customer service is really the number 1 focus for us.
And right now, you have some forward-looking restaurants opening in South Carolina, I believe?
We do. Bipin's here, so he's been hard at work and opening an entire market. So we are actually taking this market, which is probably unusual. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of work to flip, several stores at one time. We're doing this in like 6 weeks to really convert the technology side. And I think Bipin 3 months. 3 months to get all of the remodels done, which is a lot. So we're going to be testing this market with technology as well as with new menus.
Excellent. Mandy, Blaze Pizza. And where do you see the restaurant of 2030?
I think it's more than a restaurant. That's part of the issue, right? I come from Bloomin' Brands. I was there almost 13 years, took a little time off, and then said I want to do something that's a growth brand, and I want to put my own fingerprints all over it, because once you figure out what agile development looks like, right, or cross-functional teaming and the ways that you can really pursue being there for the guest where they want to be, it just unlocks a lot of stuff in our industry. So it's not any one thing. It's more about how do I test different ways to serve the guest, and it's more than just the 4 walls. The restaurant is your mobile platform, your digital, it's all the connected pieces.
James, Nathan's, and where do you see that restaurant in 2030?
Great, great question, and I agree with both Mandy and Darla. Technology, accessibility, the experience we provide our guests wherever, whenever, however they want the product is certainly going to be a big part of that 2030. But if I was trying to give a definitive answer, because I don't think we really know, and the reason I don't think we know is the speed of change, the pace of innovation. So if I were to use a word for successful restaurants, which I think is your question, right? Successful.
We're hoping, yeah.
Okay.
There'll be a lot of
successful
staff.
Restaurants of 2030, if I were to use a word, I think they'll be agile. They will be able to cater to guests' needs and wants that are going to change with an ever-increasing pace, and they'll be able to keep pace with that.
Tabassum?
Hi.
Chipotle?
Absolutely.
Where do you see it going? Even probably at the end of this year, but in 2030.
Yeah, so if I may first introduce myself, Tabassum Zalotrawala, or as many of you know me, TZ, feel free to call me that. I serve as Chief Development Officer at Chipotle, and prior to that I've been in the hospitality industry 20 years. This is 20th year, so I clearly love food and love brand growth. To answer your question, not too dissimilar from what Darla and James and Mandy have said, I don't view this from a Chipotle perspective as the restaurant of the future, but it's more about the role that Chipotle will play in consumers' lives as the years go by. Chipotle has sort of pioneered dining experiences and set operational and experiential standards, right? Since its inception, if you will, it set experiential standards such that so many other fast casual concepts have followed our footsteps, and will continue to do that. It's about evolving the model in a manner that we're not just satisfying our consumers, but we're inspiring them every time we do it.
How do you set priorities in getting to that restaurant of the future? We have different disciplines here, development, CEO, marketing background, information technology. How do you see it working together, and how do you set the priorities going forward?
Me first?
Yeah.
Okay. Very simple from my perspective. I think, our organization gets it right because we rally behind the same 5 strategic objectives, regardless of where you sit in the organization. And for Chipotle, it's been about focus on making the brand more visible and loved. That's number 1 priority. Number 2, let's run really great restaurants and serve consistently great food. That's part 2. Part 3, leverage our digital make line. So it is about digital, and that's strategic priority number 3. Number 4, how do we increase our connection with customers through our loyalty program? And then 5, I'll just say we stage gate every innovation, whether it's menu, whether it's tech, whether it's in real estate or design. Just stage gate every innovation with 3 key objectives. Does it delight the customer? Does it drive financial benefit? And if I were to add anything else, how are we able to seamlessly integrate whatever innovation we come up with into our current operations? So once you rally everyone around the same 5, things happen, good things happen.
And speaking of rallying, James, you and I talked about a 104-year-old brand.
104 years old.
How do you make the restaurant of the future with something that is more than a century old?
It's a great question, and I think we've made the restaurant of the future a few times now, being 104 years old. But we're certainly at an inflection point where there's a desire for our board of directors and our shareholders to really grow the restaurant portfolio here in the United States as well as internationally. So from a priority standpoint, really there's 2 work streams. One really introspective, us really defining who we are and making sure that we're very steadfast to that. So from a brand North Star positioning statement, we're the flavor of New York. So there's been a lot of press and magazine articles about new products that we feel are very aligned with being a New York-based brand and having that taste and flavor of New York. What probably didn't make it into the article because we didn't have cool photos and things to share about it was all of the items that we said this really is not part of the brand architecture or the brand DNA. So from a priority standpoint, is that introspective, who are we? Who do we want to be? And who can we be in a way that we can monetize positively? So if I were to aspire to be Chick-fil-A, that would not be something that really is accessible for us. So we have to be something that is reachable and attainable, but again, that we can monetize against. And then really the second work stream, and maybe even a greater priority in importance, but I think comes second to understanding who you are, is really understanding who your guest is and what they're looking for, and then understanding how you can ingratiate yourself, truly be loved by that guest base. So over the last 9 months that I've been with Nathan's, it's really been those 2 primary priorities and work streams.
Mandy, speaking of changes in a restaurant, you have opened in Michigan your first drive-through.
Correct.
For Blaze, you have a second planned.
In May or June.
What was the thinking getting up to this point, and how do you look going forward?
The thinking is that availability side, and I think I'm gonna call you TZ. I was invited to do so. How do I inspire you? And it's not in necessarily creative ways, but how do I communicate with you and make you understand that I actually care about you, the guest? I'm not doing this to sell you more pizza. I want to be friendlier to you. And if you're driven by guest at the center, that's what inspires you to do different things like that, right? How is the consumer changing is a book that's still being written, and it's not going to stop. I had a similar quote I use. I say the half-life of everything is shrinking. Call it disruption, call it whatever you will. The days of yore, and especially coming from like the Outback brand, right? Where you could come up with a great concept. For 25 years, you never had to touch it. You just opened more of them and had the same ethos that was there. We don't live in that world anymore. So for us, it's more about testing. And the prioritization really comes from, great leadership is not a secret. You have 4 or 5 pillars that you circle people around. Chipotle fires on all cylinders. We aspire to be Chipotle in many ways. We have 343 restaurants, but I'm a franchise organization. So part of what I have to do is soften some of the boundaries. We call ourselves the unfranchisor. Test with me. it doesn't bother me that you're a franchisee. I'm okay that we do this together so that it seamlessly advances the goal of the entire brand, and get it open and test it, right? See how people use the lane. Is it a way to do speed? How do I play off of the old mantra of what QSR drive times are, right? I don't know that I have to hit that time. As long as I have the guest at the center, I'm still giving you the thing that you're looking for.
And that's such a great approach. Because very often organizations that are more franchise-based will not have that kind of an approach and more sort of mandate, and that doesn't work.
And speaking of franchise-based, we were talking about this earlier. You've got an extraordinarily difficult role in bringing the franchise community along with you. You had a dirt road metaphor. Would you mind repeating that?
So first of all, I would say we're very fortunate. We are 90% franchise, but I have two of my great partners here today, Steve and Bob, who have 15% of the Hardee's brand, and they're huge advocates in partnership, looking at new technologies. But I tell people we're driving on a dirt road today that have no off and on ramps, and we need to create the highway that allows you to seamlessly get off and on and to adopt new technologies. And until you can do that, you really can't do all these other things that we talk about, because you're living with really old infrastructure that can't even communicate. So if we're going to do delivery, if we're going to do online ordering, if you can't communicate the order, it's pretty difficult to be able to achieve progress. So I would say, we have to innovate together. It takes a village. As you test this technology, all of technology changes every day. And, people ask me all the time, why are we not doing something, or can we do this? And we can do a lot of things, but you do have to pick the priorities. I think focusing on that then allows you to really move the needle.
Chipotle has some very innovative things coming out right now. Chipotlanes. What, do you have some of the photographs? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
What they look like? Am I seeing those behind me or just for us?
I think they're seeing.
There we go. What interdepartmental coordination goes into creating something like this?
Yeah, so again, great question, and I'm just going to go back to my 5 strategic priorities. And honestly, if you heard priority number 3, and in no specific order, equally important, all of them, is how do we leverage our digital systems, our digital make lines? And if we're about becoming more convenient and accessible to our customers, I think Chipotle is the #1 way that we do that, because unlike a traditional drive-through, our customers are not having to wait in line and order through a speaker board, if you will, or choose a combo meal, what have you. Neither is there any kind of financial transaction going on at the window. So you're making a date with Chipotle. Anytime you order off of our app or a marketplace app, it gives you sort of a window period when you pick your food up, and you just go through this lane and pick it up. Now that right there, the picture that you're seeing is a walk-up window, and I'd call that a solution for urban settings. So in urban markets where you've got all of this walk-up traffic, and not a possibility for cars to go by or vehicular traffic, you do something like this.
Now, Brian Nickel, CEO, said last month that half of the 150 to 165 new stores this year will have something similar to this?
We'll have a Chipotle.
What have been the demands design-wise and information technology-wise to provide this?
Yeah, so from an information technology perspective, one thing that we're super proud of is that every single kitchen in our 2,500 restaurants today has a digital make line. That digital make line is dedicated to online orders, whether it's order pickup, delivery, or catering. That's #1. And 2 is a result of us pivoting to become more accessible through walk-up windows or Chipotlanes, if you will. It's led us to really reevaluate how we design the space. And Our team here, I have some of the best-in-class design team members, have had to reevaluate the ratio of our front-of-house design and the back-of-house design. Not necessarily to get, sort of our entire footprint to get larger, if you will. But why do we do that? To ensure that these restaurants that were originally never designed to handle multiple modes of service, right? This is all of our restaurants were always designed for this one mode of service. Now, all of a sudden, you're bombarding the operations team, if you will, and I don't use that word lightly, with all kinds of service. It's people that are eating in the dining room, they're ordering and picking their order up. It's delivery drivers, it's catering, and all of this business. So how do you reduce friction, increase convenience and access? And, I'd say that the center linchpin of our restaurant design is how do you make that digital portal more convenient for all of these revenue streams.
Nathan's, they're also doing a whole lot of menu changes,
Sure.
but there are others coming down the road. How do you interdepartmentally work in the company to create those changes?
It's a great question. We have a very small team. I think most people know Nathan's and are surprised at how small an organization we are. And really the reason for that is from a points of distribution standpoint, almost 80,000 in the United States alone. Those are the number of places you'd actually experience the brand. The team itself is small, so what we've determined to do with the backing of our board of directors and shareholders is really go out and get best-in-class service providers to help us. So from a brand transformation standpoint, that's really what's been happening over the last 9 months. How do we prepare ourselves for the next 10, 20, and 30 years? It has been innovation around menu, and that's really the tip of the spear, and that's the most interesting, maybe newsworthy piece. Innovation around design and decor, and even in the presentation earlier, we've looked at not only the sights, but the smells, the aromatics, the sound, the feeling, and the overall experience of that restaurant, and how guests can experience that same type of emotive affinity they have for the brand, even if they order from delivery. So that's kind of the second innovation tier. And then the third is really technology, and that's required a complete revamp. Everything from our POS systems to the software that integrates behind that, to integrate with third-party delivery partners or ghost kitchens, or that convenience mechanism that a lot of brands are using. And then the last, and maybe least interesting, innovation work stream is around the systems that allow us to grow safely. So that's really what we've been focused on.
And at Blaze, with so much going on right now, what would you say the interdepartmental Rubik's Cube is for you as CEO?
Some of it's just being really plain with people. So we have Juliana Strife here with us. She's presenting later this afternoon. New to us from McDonald's, right? And using people as a paradigm shift, where I say, if I don't see you and the marketing folks and the design team together a lot, we're doing something wrong. Because again, it's that one singular brand voice. One of our issues is we launched new products last summer and into the fall. One geared especially for delivery, engineered. It's a larger pizza, so it travels better, it facilitates that process.
And it's a 14-inch
It's
versus
a 14
11?
inch. It's a larger shareable pizza.
Wait a minute, that's not a personal?
For a lot of people
Speak-
it is.
speak
I
for
won't
yourself.
judge. But I laughed at the dirt road. I tell my team there are moments of that where we don't have KDS on. We have digital make lines as well. I was lucky to inherit a brand where the founders had the foresight that we should have 2 lines so that second business could run on its own, and it's a much more profitable business than the front line, but we don't have KDS. So I describe it as we're kind of in the Beverly Hillbillies jalopy, and we're on the Autobahn. So we have to go do that retrofitting today, and it does impact operations and all the teams. So most of our meetings are represented by somebody around the function, so that we really are making real-time decisions on, does that work, does that not work? What's the priority of getting this thing out there so that we're even more efficient at what we do?
The large pizza is only available online,
It
correct?
is only available online.
Does that make it easier, harder?
It does make it easier. I'm waiting for the moment where the consumer demands that it be down the line. We knew when we launched it that eventually it probably will become an in-restaurant thing, if you will. But there's not a huge demand today. We don't have that many people, and we'll make it down the line if you choose. That's that guest at the center. We have a say yes mentality that whatever you want, you get. But that's one of the priorities things of what is the item that's most important to us. We need to test it and operationalize it, and there doesn't appear to be a huge consumer demand, so it's a little lower on the list right now.
Darla, CKE, Carl's and Hardee's, they have some new developments. How do you weave information technology into the new look of the restaurants? And I think we have some photos of the new look, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think there's a couple pieces here. I mean, we are in the process of really rebranding our business. And I think from a, information technology side, there's a lot of pieces that we can leverage as we go forward. But as you look at where we are today, we're refreshing everything. Now, the advantage we have is people like Chipotle, who's kind of carved that path for us. I don't have to go through all those learnings because I can learn. And I think that's a piece that we're really focused on is how do we recreate our brand, but also create the digital roadmap that gives us the advantages of all the things we've talked about today and really becoming the guest-centric location of how you want to purchase your food. So whether it's through a drive-through lane, whether it's through coming into the restaurant, mobile ordering, we need to make it available, and it needs to be a 365-day, 7/24, because people eat all the time. Day parts are no longer a thing. Your day part is whenever you want to order. So I think our infrastructure has to support all that,
Right.
Working with our development group in building out the infrastructure from the digital menu board all the way into the restaurant and how that communication works. And then data. Data is really the big deal. How do we get all that data to really work for us, to get to know who you are and service you in the best way that we can?
Do you have a loyalty program at this point?
We do not, but that is on our roadmap this year to start designing.
And what are you looking for? What are you shopping for? What would be the ideal loyalty program?
The ideal loyalty program is how do we get you back into the restaurant, ideally 7 days a week, but hopefully, that one more check that we can pull you back in. But I think with our innovation, creating an environment that people want to come back and visit frequently.
What's been the biggest hurdle to get to this point?
I think we just have a lot of moving pieces. We moved from California 2 years ago. We have a very new team, holistically from the support center. The great thing we have is we have franchisees that are just super knowledgeable, and I think it's helping us really craft a new direction. But it's a lot going on. So the swim lanes are multiple, and I think just picking the priorities, we have this conversation with my franchise team a lot. It's like, what are the priorities? I think the 5 you mentioned, it's very similar, but I think when you're doing so many things at one time, you're trying to get there as fast as you can. So it's hard sometimes not to try and move faster, but sometimes you have to slow down to move faster.
And speaking, go ahead.
It's very well said. I think it's the trap that a lot of organizations get into, is let's just do a bunch of different things and a lot of different things, and it's a trap. Yeah.
Where do you see organizations most often getting trapped? Is there an aspect that you think is more?
Well, so one, like I just said, when you've got a group of people that's not focused on, a set of 3 to 5 priorities, it's a trap. And 2, I like to call this hippo. It's about when organizations trump opinion over data, and it's the voice of the highest paid officer that gets heard. That's a trap for innovation.
No, I would echo that, actually.
Yeah.
I think, especially coming in now, I've been with Blaze for 2 years, CEO since November. And it's very easy to want to go, oh my gosh, yay, this is going to be really exciting. Let's do this and this is this. Mm-hmm. You cannot. It really does come down to those pillars. And as a franchise organization, the beauty of watching Chipotle is it's kind of like there was an 18-month journey here. There's a ton of work that was happening that now is resulting in this rapid fire of the scholarship program, the farmers, and you get a lot of pressure from outsiders that are like, well, where's yours? That's a longer haul that it will take to get there. And if you don't have ruthless prioritization and talk about it in a very friendly and accessible way, let's remember what are our pillars, right? And the only difference that we have to continually turn that lens back to is profitability. If I'm not working on profitability for my franchisees, they will leave, right? They will stop developing and growing. So I don't look at our P&L, I look at my franchisees' P&L, and that's the balancing act of when we're looking at our priorities and saying, what are we going to pursue? It's how do I take the franchisees with me so that I actually do have the permission to go make these things happen. Those are beautiful restaurants, by the way.
Yeah, the restaurant's beautiful.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Thumbs up over there.
Speaking of having plans in place, I went to the website for Blaze. I was looking at the cauliflower pizza, the keto pizza. Crusts were out.
Ron,
Was I just in the wrong area?
thanks for exposing it.
Has it been
this
just
is
so
stuff-
popular?
Stuff happens. It's that popular. We originally launched the keto crust last summer. Knew that it should have a consumer appeal. I have somebody who likes it right here, and I am a fan as well. But you never quite know. So we sort of had our Popeye's chicken sandwich moment of it was out and you could not get it. And we said, okay, let's pause for a moment, really build up the supply chain to make sure we can handle it. Then we launched the large pizza, so most of the marketing efforts went to this new product line, and it got a little softer. And then in January, because it's that time of year when you do this, we re-promoted the cauliflower and the keto crust. And again, slightly underestimated maybe the amount of demand that was out there. The good news is today, it's almost a brand builder. It's kind of like the Peloton commercial that any press is good press to an extent. Not something we aspire to do, but it really is just a sign of the consumer demand and showing how much this has in the way of legs. First pizza company to come out with an actual keto crust that's good. It's flavorful. It's something that, Julian is an amateur bodybuilder, so she was like, yeah, I can eat the food. It's okay, and it just is a learning muscle for a relatively young organization on how to get ahead of those things and then how to rebuild our supply chain.
What current trends do you think are most affecting your brand? Tabassum?
Can somebody else go first?
Or if anybody wants to pop in.
I totally need a minute.
Okay, James, is it?
Current trends most impacting the brand. I think our answer from Nathan's standpoint would be a little different. Really, we're in a evolution where we've been synonymous with one product that really works for us, but it's a low frequency product. So I would say, while not as gravitational the industry of, say, nutritional needs or dietary needs or convenience, the need for high quality, varied menu is what really the ringing phone for us was.
I think we have some photos of menu items.
You might.
Could we? We don't have those. Okay, never mind. We have photos of new concept?
Sure, new design. So, part of the brand transformation, as I mentioned, really that second work stream was around the look and feel, which it was interesting to hear the presentation earlier from our Swedish friend. Really, we're looking at all those things, the look and the feel, but also the smells, the sights, the sounds. Nathan's, you can see underneath our logo there, the flavor of New York, which is really our North Star. So everything we do comes back to that. The menu, the physical design, the tone of voice, the uniforms, how we speak to our guests, all really resonates. And this design you see is, let's say, more of an evolution than a revolution. So for probably the past 100 years, we've said, Nathan's famous, you know us from Coney Island, except people don't know where Coney Island is. But they know where New York is. So we call this our 5 boroughs design. And if you go inside, really you have everything from, the kiosks, automated clamshell cooking. All of our menu items are made at the time of order, not before. Even through the drive-through, and our average ticket time is still below 3 minutes. And it's really that technology in the kitchen that allows us to do that.
Are you pumping in any cents?
So we're not pumping in cents, but we had a menu item that was very aromatic. So we make, for our Pat LaFrida cheesesteak and our New York Attitude Burger, we use a Vidalia caramelized onion that's made with brown sugar, clarified butter, and balsamic vinegar. And we had a manufacturer come to us and say, well, we can make that for you. And really the reason, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due, the reason that we still make that in the restaurant is the aromatics, the umami that just hits you in the stomach when you come in the restaurant. And it's really came from me living about 35 miles from here in Coto de Casa and driving past In-N-Out Burger every day. I said, you know, that to me was the call to action. I had a convertible, I'd pull up at a stop sign, and I'm like, well, I know where we're going this weekend. So we're not pumping in aromas, we are naturally creating
them.
aromas in their natural environment
And
as
much
you
more
find them in the
transparent.
wild.
Yes.
Exactly, exactly.
Any trends that are impacting Blaze going forward? Consumer trends or things you're seeing in the general world?
Yeah, I think we're trying to not think of it as a trend. I love what you said about brand voice, and we're going to be doing even more work this year about who are we, so that we do have that North Star. We distort very heavily to Millennial and Gen Z. Yay, what a gift. It's enviable in a lot of our category. What we have to be is authentic. We have to really fire across the cylinders. If I'm marketing to you or at you, it's a fail. So it's easy for people to try to say it's a trend or there's one way that you have to pursue it or express yourself as a brand. For us, it's more about really staying true to it's fast casual pizza. I want to delight you with customization with super fresh, clean ingredients in a very short time period at a great value. I put some ethos around that, right? The brand does. Really honing into what that is and being able to evolve and adapt is part of the key, but it's not really about what's the next trend.
Darla, are there any trends impacting Carl's Jr. Hardee's?
I mean, I think you would look at the obvious because we are so far behind. It's, you know, you think about mobile, you think about loyalty. We are just rolling out, starting with digital menu boards to get those in some of our key market, in some of the
Do you have
test
any
markets.
in test right now, or are you
We're in the
looking
process
at
of
them?
doing that.
Excellent.
And we actually have rolled them out into Columbia. So I think really it's about building this infrastructure that allows us to adopt innovation, not trend. So what is really the best thing for our guests, and how do we align to that with infrastructure and technology and the building, all that goes together.
How do you not scare the franchise community when these things are coming along?
Well, Bob, Steve, I'm to my franchisees.
They're very brave men. They don't scare easily.
I think it's really about the partnership, and I think it really is what you said earlier. You have to work together. You know, so if you have the key priorities and your focus as a team, and you see what's happening from a result perspective, so it's like a test and learn, but you have to bring everybody along. You can't just, mandate doesn't work, and mandate's not a partnership. So I think it really is, you know, working together as partners to come up with the right answers.
And providing dollars and cents to go with anything that they're having to invest.
Now, if they want to donate royalties to my tech fund, I will definitely take that.
Tabassum, back to you on trends.
Okay, so, you know, I'll just say that overall, not just Chipotle, but for all of us, consumers' lifestyles, their habits, and the way they use digital is impacting all of us. But trends aside, I think one of the things that's driving Chipotle and all parts of our business is our North Star, or our purpose, cultivating a better world. And that truly is, I mean, you know, it's whether it's marketing and menu innovation or what we do in our development, the kind of restaurant experience we create, the lens we look at it through is how do we build on the assets that have already made Chipotle so great? The transparency, the authenticity, just you know, being real and viewing it from a lens of how do you cultivate a better world. So I think that's really impacting us and the way we do business.
And because it's such a varied panel, I would love to see how do you prioritize, or I put a percentage on technology investments in everything that each of your brands are doing?
Heavy investment in technology, for sure, for all of the reasons that we've just said. You know, absolutely, I'd say that it's the number one investment our company makes is in technology. Whether it's for education of our employees, or whether it's the restaurant technology, or whether it's technology, mobile technology and GIS technology that helps our department or my organization locate better sites, physical sites, if you will. So that's definitely number one investment for us.
Excellent. For Nathan's?
Sure. I would say from an incremental spending standpoint around brand transformation over the last 9 months, 50% would fall into technology. I would say just to look at the, and I air quote, simple cash investment in technology, I think hides the fact that there was a huge investment in human capital. So we're at really a starting place, probably not maybe too dissimilar from Hardee's Carl's Jr. We saw that as a good thing. There was nothing for us to uncoil or go back on. We really could start at ground zero. So the human capital and the time and the thought management around technology investment was making sure that we were going to be nimble and agile enough, knowing that we would want to change and evolve, and that we weren't going to have technology that was very competitive today that was going to be outdated in 5 years and we wouldn't be able to move away from it. So making sure that we had a full technology stack and ecosystem that was going to evolve as really the economy, consumer needs, and business needs change. That took a great deal of thought.
And you said 50%?
About 50% of the incremental spending over the past 9 months.
Interesting. How about for Blaze? Where does technology and information technology fit in?
It's really number one. If you think about the definition of technology, we use that as or tech as a very loose term. It really does mean people, and it means solutions that you wouldn't otherwise pursue. It's not just, oh, I need my IT guy to go build me a thing. And the restaurant business, and especially across the casual dining to fine dining, casual dining, fast casual, QSR, is different rates of adoption, but laggards in general behind retail and other businesses where they really have made it a part of their everyday life. We just change how we talk about it. So everything is what's the solution, and it's that cross-team functioning. What are the ways that we solve this problem in a better fashion? I think as a franchisor, I have more of an appetite for some of that investment on my own, where yes, there are moments where I do have to figure out in the future how to get them to help pay for that. But if I just wait for franchisees to say, oh, here, I'd like to give you my contribution to go develop, we will continue to be the laggard. It is one of the differences between, I envy the company-owned model at times, pros and cons both ways, but certainly for us because of, KDS on the back line. I've got an entire digital business that it needs to be really efficient. I need to be landing pizzas on the carryout shelf 10 seconds before you're there, right? You being the guest, the delivery driver, whoever it is that wants it. And how do I use science or some better process to make that happen? That's how you get really good at what you're doing. And it's the same kind of thing where there's not a lot of ego walking around our building. It's what are the ways that we solve this together in a more elegant fashion.
And for CKE, the organization?
So we've done a couple things. When you think about all the technologies, it's difficult in a franchisee organization to take all those and make them work. I can't align to 15 different point-of-sale systems. So we have set standards, and so we now have 2 standards that we're developing against. That's going to help us build that highway. So all the things that we're building, so we're doing the same thing. We're investing as a franchisor because I believe we need to set the highway, get it successful. But then as we move forward, whether it's online ordering, all those things will cost money, and we have to work together to figure out how to pay. But the good thing about that is it should also make money. So I think it's just taking those components and really moving them into a framework that everyone then can leverage. More importantly, that we can adopt new things. So I want to be able to, for the future, I don't want to have to say, well, it's 18 months to go fix it. I want to say, you know what, let's adapt, learn, test, and roll. So the agile development becomes a benefit, not a hindrance.
I met 2 of your advisory council members.
Yes.
How big is that council, and kind of how often do you meet? What's the framework for that group?
I want to say we have about 20 on that council, and out of the franchise community, we have, so both Carl's and Hardee's represented, but then we also have others that come to this as well. And I think from the framework of that is, it's really a guiding post for us to say, here's the things we're doing, setting our priorities, but also getting realistic feedback of, what's possible. And I think the really benefit of this is that when we do agree, we set a direction, if there's concern in the franchise community, they're calling them, and they're also being advocates for the direction. So that's a huge benefit for a franchisor. So I'm not trying to swim upstream. It's having a combination of partnership, but also they're aligned with where we're going. It doesn't make it easier, but it makes it the ability to be able to talk about why we're doing it and that we support it is very different than I have no idea what they're doing and they're spending a lot of money. So it does make a difference when you have that support there.
This has been a really nice exchange, and I love hearing that everybody's priority is to invest in technology. I mean, clearly, why do we want to do this? Because we want to connect with our customers, and our customers have said it really clear, right? This is how they want to communicate with us, through technology. But I just underscore it with no matter how much technology we invest in or the tools we have in place, it's really about mindset and creating that culture of experimentation. You can have all the tools in place, but if you don't have that culture of experimentation, it doesn't go anywhere.
What's the most experimental thing going on at Chipotle right now?
Oh, I don't know that I can reveal that.
Or what has
there
been
isn't
revealed?
one. Actually, there isn't one, and that's the beauty of it. There are, at any given moment, hundreds of experiments going on in our organization. What I will tell you that they are I mentioned this before, we stage gate every experiment. And this is how we're able to sort of control how much and how far we go with these experiments. And it's an environment where, you know, if we conduct 10 experiments and we get 2 successes out of the 10, mission accomplished. You see what I didn't say there. There were 8 failures, but it doesn't matter because we've got so many of these experiments going on.
Do you have one of the interiors of the new Chipotle store, I believe?
I think the picture here might be a remodel store, but
This is in Pasadena or near Huntington Beach
this is in Newport Beach, actually.
Newport Beach. Anything about the design of that store that you think is brand
Yeah,
forward?
I mean, so I'll just say that this new restaurant design really was a way that we can reinforce Chipotle as a lifestyle brand and really build on the assets that have already made Chipotle great. Be transparent, be real, be authentic. So you can see it's a simple design, but we just want to leverage that. But really what we're solving for is reducing friction in the front of house with all these various customers, whether dining in or taking their order away or the delivery drivers, and then really reducing the friction back of house as well. This is the piece that gets very little attention and should get more, I believe, in organizations, because if your people in the back of house are not working in the most efficient manner, they're not going to be able to serve. No worries. Yeah, so it's really about, I mean, you can see that we've made that digital portal front and center, made it convenient and more accessible. And then the other thing that my team is super focused on with our new restaurant design is how do we really make this restaurant true to our purpose of cultivating a better world. So we do that through our food. Our food is sourced right, it's made right, it's made right in front of you. Now, how do we create an experience for our customers that's sort of inspiring and it's got finishes and, work that speaks to us, so that artwork, for example, it's not sort of in your face, if you will, but if you were to ask, what exactly does this artwork mean? It really is to sort of harken back to where we source our rice or corn. So it's cornfields and rice fields, if you will. So it's inspiring in that sense, and materials that are sustainable. So
it's a great looking restaurant.
yeah, I could speak forever and ever, but then I'd be taking so much
That's okay, I'm having trouble speaking right now, so that's good. Excuse me. Too much time on the Petri dish of airplanes. Look, I'm not, no, let's not even talk about that. Looking at the restaurant landscape today, what changes most excite you? Darla?
I think, creating something that's really inviting and that people want to be in, is important. But again, 70% of our business is drive-through. So I think, making it efficient so that it works both back of the house and front of the house. And I think just getting something that when people drive by, is enticing. It's like, okay, oh, that looks great. I want to go in there. And I think just creating the experience is what we have to do as our team.
For Blaze?
Really, what I get most excited about is permission to experiment. I have, my son is 18, my daughter's 14. I love the lack of rule book they have that I had at that age. Like, oh, life has to look like this, and this happens this way. And, I grew up, my dad was a Pizza Hut operator, so at the dinner table at night, irony of ironies, I would hear about the evolution of that brand when it was in its heyday to, oh, the egg comes in a tube now, or they don't make the sauce fresh anymore, or some of those kind of things. For us, because we distort so heavily to Millennial and Gen Z, we get to play. And it's just fun. It's easy to inspire people and say, we don't have to think of restaurants as the four-wall experience, and we can start to talk about things in a different way. I was just going to add on to what you said about the box. For us, too, guest at the center means everybody is a guest. So our staff are our guests. What are the ways that I'm designing the building so they feel great about when they walk in? Or I'm romancing the pizza smith. The complexity at Blaze is I can't put a perfectly measured amount of frozen fries in a fryer, push a button, there's a laser that measures the color of the fry that tells me exactly when it's done so they're hot. I have to bake a product, and depending on which crust you put it on, how many ingredients are on it, and how skilled that person is, I need to make them feel really good about what they do and sort of romance that chefiness of our brand, but it's still very fast. So the ability to play, the TikToks and the different ways that we can tell the consumer that we are that lifestyle brand is super fun.
Do you think with the drive-throughs that you're doing, you will reduce the size of the footprint of the Blaze Pizza stores?
I think we'll play with it. I think there's not one model fits all, right? If you're in Florida, it's a different answer than if you're in LA. And I think there's huge capacity for things like, for us, our oven is the centerpiece, right? Putting that in a smaller location and having more of what's typically called a Delco, sure, why not? It's the idea that we don't have to have one single footprint that only meets all needs, but we certainly have some super large locations that have a ton of open seats, and they're full. They're just as accessible as anything else.
James, what excites you in the restaurant industry right now?
So in the industry, I love some of the new millennial-focused brands who really know who they are and really stand for something. And Pizza certainly, is one of those brands that I think of and have experienced. But there's a lot of them. And what I like is not only do you have a passionate owner or founder who really knows who they are and what the brand stands for, but they're willing to remove anything that isn't alignment with that. Whether it's saying, you know what, we're about health, or we're about the genesis of our product, so we're not going to carry Coca-Cola or Pepsi. That's just not who we are. And if that doesn't work for that customer, that's probably not the customer we're going for. So I like that there's brands that really have that discipline. Is as you get larger, as you get to hundreds of units, and I worked for a job most recently that had lots and lots of locations, you really start worrying about alienating any segment of the population. You just want everyone to come once a day, right? And some of these brands really know who they are, and they're willing to be that brand. I like that a lot.
Tabassum?
I'll echo exactly what he just said. We're in exciting times. And building on what you just said, what really excites me is the sharing of best practices that's occurring between brands today. And it wasn't like that 10 years ago. It was sort of, we're very proprietary, I think where we've landed is, it's a small world. We're all in this together. We all want to do what's right for our business and for the customer, even if it's the hard thing to do. How do we work with each other and learn from each other? So I think that really excites me. We're in good times. Yeah.
We wanted to leave 10 minutes for questions. Is there anybody in the audience with this fantastic panel of executives pose a question? I would like to ask each of you just simple answer. What brand do you like to eat at?
Well, of course, it's CKE.
If when not eating at your own brand, of course.
I mean, for me, I like salads, and I'm more of a wrap person. So, sushi. So I think that's my
So
Go-to.
sushi or wraps. Mandy, besides Blaze Pizza?
I eat an awful lot of Chipotle.
Oh, yay.
18-year-old
good.
son, 14-year-old daughter. I eat a lot of Chipotle.
And do you often deliver it or get it delivered or pick up?
Not as
or
much. It's just as easy to
eat it at
order it
store?
online, stop by and pick it up myself.
Thank you.
James?
Three come to mind, In-N-Out Burger, Chick-fil-A, and Raising Cane's. I think they all do a fantastic job at being, again, these are mature brands. They focus on the quality of the experience in just minute detail. I remember when Chick-fil-A launched the dip and pour ketchups, which economically made absolutely no sense for them, but it was the right thing for the guest. And I think there's a lesson to be learned there. When you look at those brands, they're outperforming the market. They're very true to who they are. They're focused on the guest, even if a quantitative business model can't support it. They do the right thing from a guest standpoint.
I
Tabassum?
eat a ton of Chipotle, no lie. Honestly, I mean, at least 4 times a week, and I'm able to do that. But when I'm not eating Chipotle, I'm a pretty big salad fan. So just salad in the house. Where's Paul? Huge fan, as well as Sweet Green. I don't think they're here, but yeah, I'm one of those that'll pay $20 to eat a good salad. Yeah.
Any question? Let's see if there's a hand going up. Right there.
I'll say it simple for us. Hold your delivery partner accountable. So we work with DoorDash and Postmates, and we just hold them accountable.
How do
So
you
it's a
hold them
constant-
accountable?
It's a constant conversation.
Do you contract with, how do you hold them accountable?
The direct rapport, the constant rapport of what we see out in the field, the customer feedback that we get, and sort of working with them to ensure that experience is seamless and a good one. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's 100% of the time a great experience. I get it. There are issues, and it's about working with that delivery partner and making sure that we're able to eliminate a lot of those issues.
You said it was a two-part question, correct?
Yeah, is there any fear that food temperature becomes an issue over time, that the guests move away from accepting food that's maybe, not of the quality that they get in the restaurant?
It's always a concern. I'm sure others will agree as well. This is always a concern, but it goes back to working with the right partners and ensuring they truly are not a vendor to you. They're working with you. They're a partner to you in your business.
I would say they're an extension of our team, and
Yeah.
I agree with you. We work with all of them to the point where I'm actually going to be driving. I'm actually applied to be a driver because I want to see how it's actually happening.
Well done.
Because they tell you what they do, but I really want to see, do you really pick up 4 orders and ours number 5? And so, if I'm in that lane, how far down the lane am I? So one of it, I just want to understand, and they know that I'm doing this. I've told them all that I'm doing this. But I think the other piece is when you get those complaints and people come back to you, just stay on top of them. Because, it is something that's going to happen. And there are good drivers and bad drivers. And I think people, just like employees, will do their job and some won't. But I think for our brand, it's our brand.
Yeah.
So they're representing us, every time they go out there.
We didn't tell them that we were signing up as drivers. We just did it anyway. How do you swipe right to accept or decline, and how does all that work? And I won't tell you some of the things that we're doing with the delivery partners, but I will tell you that we try to educate them. The difference between the hospitality or travel industry, right, where somebody inserted themselves in the middle of all the hotels. Fine, nobody cares, because if you book with a hotel through Expedia or through Marriott directly, when you show up, they still own the experience. Your room's still clean, your bed's still fresh, blah, blah, blah. Food, I've handed it off to you, so I am giving you my ethos, and it's riding around in your car, or it's being turned upside down. The bar is always going to get raised, just with anything. The introduction is sort of phase 1, and then it'll get better and better. For us, it was innovation of product. The 11-inch pizza travel's okay. It's never going to be hot because it's a thin crust, but people are okay with that. And as long as the consumer is saying they're okay with it, I'm happy to sell you perfectly good pizza that's not flaming hot, but I'm also going to go develop a 14-inch pizza that does deliver really warm, and then look at different ways to innovate. Do I put it in a sleeve? Do I have a warming oven, or different ways that that's technology, right? It's not really IT or software, but how do I get really good at what I'm going to do so that I can minimize somebody else's error, the delivery drivers. And I've had conversations with the senior people at DoorDash and Postmates, and I've told them, you want to win? Fix that part of it. I don't care that your drivers are contractors. Figure out how to incentivize them to care and deliver the same kind of experience that a restaurant staff would. You'll win all day long, because then we'll all flock to you.
That's true.
Do you, Alex of Zoom mentioned this morning that he thinks the coronavirus fears will, within 6 to 8 weeks, change delivery landscape forever. Do you think that's possible? Or what is the impact of delivery on you right now?
I mean, we are, it's very popular, and we're continuing to ramp up. I mean, I think there's concerns, with that, but no different than when the flu's out. I mean, I think it's a bigger concern, but I would say I don't see it changing it forever, but I think it's definitely going to be something we have to watch and focus on from a safety, packaging, all those things to make sure that there's no opportunity for contamination. But I think just as a delivery general, I think that's something we're always looking at.
How about for Blaze?
The older I get, the more I try not to say always or never. Maybe, right? Entirely possible. It's okay. We're prepared for it. The part that people haven't quite unraveled are the really sizable numbers out there. Even at our highest last year when we did the introduction and we were on streaming TV and had like a 360-degree campaign around our large pizza, when I offer free delivery, 45% of people still choose to come get it themselves. So there's still quite a few consumers out there who are just fine saying, I can get it in 10 minutes. I know if I order it now, I can get in my car, jump up there and go grab it. So might, the coronavirus have some impact? Sure, in the short term. I don't know that it radically changes. I think the whole consumer experience right now, again, is that I just want it my way, that I want to have it at that time. If I can't get out and I want it delivered, I want to have it delivered. If I want it a little fresher and I want it in my control because I can get it faster and I'll go get it from you and I've got a drive lane that I can pick it up so I don't have to get out of my car, great. I'd be happy to sell you a pizza whichever way you'd like to have it.
So I do think it'll have an impact, and it could potentially have a positive impact, because I think you'll see late adopters who have stayed out of it for whatever reason, looking at this as an opportunity to try. So I think it's an opportunity, and it's what we do with it. To answer the gentleman's question, I think it was almost a year ago in Palm Springs where we were talking about the delivery part of the business, and at that point in time, the industry was being very opportunistic. It was sales, whether the quality of sales were there or not, it was certainly top-line revenue to be had. And I said at that point in time, and I still stand behind it, the brands that figure out how to deliver an experience instead of a meal will ultimately win. And I think this, whether it's the coronavirus, and if we think the coronavirus, if this is the last potential pandemic we're going to face, join me in China or Saudi Arabia in the next couple of weeks. And there's other things, certainly, let's call it percolating out there. So I think this is an opportunity for late adopters to experience delivery, and it's an opportunity for us to wow them with the experience. And I think it's really everything from packaging to preparation to the relationships with the third-party vendors, the technology, and how you process that order. If you're just in an opportunistic state of mind where something flashes on your KDS and you make that product and put it in the window, that's not delivering a fantastic experience. But if you build your system to be able to deliver hot, fresh food through that delivery mechanism, I do think it'll be a sustainable business.
I'm between lunch right now, so I'll be really brief. Look, I'll just say that anything's possible, okay? Is it going to impact our business? Who knows? What I do know is that if we control what we can control really, really well, which is make excellent food, deliver excellent food, and deliver an exceptional, good experience, we'll be fine. So,
Please thank me, yeah. Join me in thanking Tabassum, James, Mandy, and Darla.
We